Welcome! Do you feel like you're missing too many shots in Escape from Duckov? Let's fix that. Your weapon has 3 stats that influence recoil: ADS spread, vertical recoil, and horizontal. The vertical being quite simple. That is when your mouse moves behind the target as you're shooting and goes away. And the horizontal is, well, your mouse going left and right as you're shooting. This horizontal and vertical, you can control over single fire shooting and over obviously trying to somehow drag your mouse on the target and not leave away while you're still moving around, right? And then we get the actual ADS spread. And that is if you ADS on the target and you shoot at the target, and it's not the actual recoil, it's your bullets going off the middle of where you're shooting. The higher your ADS spread value is, the more bullets will veer off the middle, the more they'll spread. For example, the RPK has a 10.35, and our single fire M1A DMR has a 6.58. If I now single fire spam at the target and let the recoil reset itself, the ADS spread will never get me off the target because it's around 6 being a magical value here. And this obviously gets very important on distance, because if we're going to be shooting an RPK and we're sitting like this far away and the ADS spread is high, well, no matter how much I'm on target with the recoil rate, I might still randomly miss shots. This brings us to the question now: what's better, going for balance stock with a minus vertical recoil and or putting on attachments that do reduce the ADS spread? And I do believe here it's important to look at the actual values of the vertical, horizontal recoil and the ADS spread, because the ADS spread on the RPK might be 10, but the vertical and horizontal recoil is insanely high. Compare this now to an STG77A3. This has 24 to the 45 of the RPK. That STG pretty much has no recoil as you're shooting. Keeping this on target is extremely easy. I don't even have to try. However, despite being on target, there are still bullets missing. So for the STG in this case, because I can keep it so easily on target, it would be stupid to put on any attachment that reduces recoil. Yes, I can go for the muzzle. I can reduce the recoil. I can make it even easier to technically stay on target. Despite doing that, there are still bullets that are spreading away. And that's where for this weapon, for example, the ADS spread is just perfect. Because no matter how fast I shoot, no matter how hard I go away, right, I will always have at least the spread be lower, and I can keep this on target anyways. Whereas for the RPK, if you struggle to keep it on target, or even the AK-103, well, it has a lot of vertical and horizontal recoil. So using something like a vertical recoil reduction here does insanely more than on the other, because 23% of 45 is vastly more than 23% of 25. With these two attachments, the AK feels very good on range. However, the best way to actually control recoil on distance to make sure you're really hitting the shots is obviously going for that single fire as fast as you can, because it kind of is going to more or less reset your recoil in the middle. This is also why 2x scopes and 4x scopes are straight up horrible, because they will increase your ADS time, and the ADS time makes it harder for you to actually hit the headshots, because you got to wait fully shrunken, and then you can really put that dot where you want it to be. And with a higher ADS time, that shrinking takes longer. And the sight massively increases the recoil, no matter how good you are at controlling. If I take my AK here and I put it 4x on, and I'm going to be trying to hit those headshots, well, yeah, I mean, this is like here with this is with the recoil attachments right on it. But how is 23% going to help when I'm worsening the whole thing by 70 and 30%? Sure, a 20 and 8% might be fine, but again, ADS time down. Aiming range up is okay, but if you need aiming range, you'd rather use a weapon with a high aiming range. It's better to actually go for your crit damage multiplier increase that a digital and red dot sight have. Because with these right now, you're going to be doing more damage to the headshots. I mean, we're sitting at 145%, and now we're seeing 155%. And that red dot is obviously easier to keep on than some of the other stuff, especially when you're then going for the single fire shooting. And what's the conclusion here? Is it actually better to vertical and horizontal recoil, or should you go for the ADS spread? The answer is actually neither. Because what you should be looking for is to get as much movement speed as possible, and preferable an increased ADS time. We get the quick grip for increasing the ADS, as we have the laser mobility that allows us to move faster. If I put both of these, for example, on the STG-77A3, together with a digital sight for that aiming range and everything, I get a weapon that's highly mobile to move around with, and at the same time, if I then need to ADS, it's pretty much super quick, right? And I can obviously hit every single shot because it has so low spread. Now you're gonna say, but Pony, the AK does more damage. And you're correct about that. Per shot, you would do more damage if you then hit those shots. But there's another stat that's very important for this, and that would be range. 24.7. As soon as you're out of the range, you do vastly less damage. For example, the AK here up close on an unarmored target, we're going to be doing 18.2 damage. If I now go away and go further away than my effective weapon range, suddenly it's 9.1. That's half the damage. So I'm simply going over the range here, 18 and 9. That hurts, which means it makes no sense to make the AK a super long-range laser beam because you're anyways not getting all the damage out of the range. You kind of want to be close up like this, and that's what you then got to make sure that the gun actually hits, right? You got to make sure that you have low enough spread and or recoil control, but you can do that, and the ADS time that matters as you're then close to your targets. Whereas the STG actually does have 2 meters more, or 2 range more, so I can stand further away with the STG than the AK, and I can still hit my shots for maximum damage. Even though this gun has more range, and therefore I should probably focus on the recoil control, I would still go for the very fast ADS, because if I then walk around the corner, I spot someone, I'm just quicker ADS'd, and I can quicker retaliate and shoot him, instead of taking longer for that. Because the time it takes to ADS in, that time you're pretty much hip firing, right? So as soon as you're ADS, you're fully minimum spread and everything. But what if we now decrease that hipfire spread tremendously? Because that can be crazy. Look at the MP5. It does a good damage per shot. I mean, we're sitting at 12 damage per shot with a high fire rate. And I can pretty much stand this far away from the target, no ADSing because it's slow, and we're already hitting okay, right? It slightly veers off, which is a bit sad. However, if I now put on that hipfire spread, together with a laser for hipfire spread, you can suddenly hit every single shot. You're not going to miss a single one. Now, obviously, the MP5 has one of the lowest hipfire spreads in the world of all the guns. The MP7 is closed with 16.8, so you can pretty much do the same as the MP5. And it does have a slightly better range of 20.6 over 19.7, but for the distances we're using hipfire for, that doesn't really matter that much. However, you could also take something like the MF, which has a lot of attachment slots, and then use those beautiful hipfire attachments. We get that, and suddenly you get an AR with quite some effective range that can equivalently hipfire extremely well. And you don't even care if your sight goes off the target. I mean, I could even stand this far away and still be extremely efficient with hipfire if I just walk around the corner and just blast away at him, not waiting for the ADS, right, to be accurate. No, I'm just going to hipfire or hipfire into ADS, but I'll net totally hit more bullets. Now, an attachment like the horizontal grip too does seem good because 43% horizontal recoil control is amazing. But even the RPK with some of the highest horizontal recoil in the game does not need the horizontal grip. This is the RPK without anything on it, right? It kind of like on close, I can keep this on the target. Further away, if I would try to laser beam it, because the RPK does actually have a good range, right? We're 28.3, that's the highest range we've seen. If I now try to shoot away with this, well, yeah, I'm somehow on target. But the biggest problem we're having is more that the thing tries to go to the back, right? This is how fast it goes to the back, rather than it goes left and right. And if I need to hit my heavy damage bullets, I can always just single fire and reduce the ADS spread. So even for that, that horizontal recoil grip is quite useless. But ADS time stuff would be good because we're at 0.8 ADS time. While the normal AK feels already slow with 0.6. Which means for an RPK, for example, I would go for the red dot sign. Then on the muzzle, reduce the horizontal and vertical recoil because the values are just very high on this. As my grip, I would take a quick grip for the ADS time. And for the stock, I would actually go for the reduced ADS spread. And then in order to make it more manageable, you can get even more ADS time with however high rarity you have, and or you could actually increase the movement speed of your gun by going for that laser mobility. However, right now at this point, we're sitting actually at 0.54 seconds ADS time, and the gun is just more manageable in total, hitting those shots repeatedly, laser style. Especially with the amount of bullets it has, it's going to be very amazing, and you're going to be hitting your headshots. Now, we could also use a vertical muzzle brake for that vertical recoil. However, does vertical recoil even matter? Only for hitting headshots. So if you actually want to hit headshots, right? If you want to keep your mouse on their head, yes, it does matter. But if you just want to hit the target, I can put my mouse right here behind them, right? I wouldn't do headshots, but I would at least hit all my shots, right? The vertical in this case doesn't actually matter, especially if you're going to take care of the vertical, but you're going to be ignoring any type of ADS time or ADS spread, because then all the vertical in the world doesn't help if your gun just deviates from the middle and or goes left and right. How would this look now for the single fire gun? Because we get the M1A, and as I said, if you just slowly spam away, I'm actually never going to miss a shot. And the M1A is something that you want to use on range. That's 32.7 meters. So I could stand all the way in the back, I can ADS in, and I get a big aiming range, and I can still hit my full damage on those nifty headshots. Now, the M1A does have a huge vertical and horizontal recoil, but it also has slots for everything. Important on this gun is you need to be ADS, right? We want to be ADS that we can then have the lowest spread possible and hit our headshots over and over again. However, what you really don't want to use, despite this being a longer range gun, is a sight. You might be able to aim really far, but if I now hit this target, I would have to wait this long to re-hit, and if I shoot 4 times is horrible. So that is out of the question, which means something like a red dot, digital sight, whatever you can easier aim with. Like I like the red dot because it's just really easy to hit that on the head, right? Very good. And since we need to be ADS really quick, I like to take the ADS quick grip 2. And then I would reduce my vertical and horizontal recoil just to get that huge spread somewhat down. Again, the ADS spread is already extremely low. It's close to that 6. So giving it less ADS spread wouldn't be worth it. I'd rather, in this case, reduce the recoil very much and then also put on our laser again for mobility or ADS time to get this ADS time extremely low, because now I can aim in extremely quick. And if I shoot away, as you can see, due to the lower recoil, I'm heavily on target, right? So I can hit headshot after headshot after headshot relatively quick. Yes, there is still some bouncing going on. Yes, there is still some spread, but it's so far on the low end that you just hit all your shots. What about the magazine slot now? Because we haven't talked about that. I tend to use the lower end ones. For example, this is a sniper rifle magazine with 50% mag capacity. Great. And that would be another ADS time modifier on top. So anything that actually increases your ADS time, you don't want that, right? Pistol mags are different. They have ADS time minus and reload time minus, right? So the better the mag, the more awesome it is. Rule of thumb, don't use a mag that gives you a negative, no matter what it is. What about suppressors? Would they help you in any way? It says minus sound range, but I'll be honest with you, I've tried it out plenty of times and the enemies still hear your shots. The problem is, it will reduce your bullet speed and it will reduce your range. And any kind of range loss is significant because it halves your damage. Again, with the STG, I am doing here on the body, 15, 15, 15, 15. And if I go too far away, we're sitting at 7.5. That's horrible. You want to do the maximum damage of your weapon at any point. So compared to a suppressor, if you have an attachment and they're out there that increases your effective damage range, that's something that you want. Because no matter how far you then stand away and decide to take a pop shot at someone, right? And we all know that sometimes you just want to stand as far away as possible. Range will simply be king there to get you the maximum damage. This would be, for example, one of these extenders, rifle extended muzzle, range 30%. Adding this to our STG instead of the minus ADS spread brings us up to a 34.45 range. And we already know the STG is insane. I mean, we get the STG 77 as well, which would be The same gun with a native 4x scope built in, that's also very easy to keep on target. And well, obviously, the further you stand away, you can still keep it on target very nicely. Imagine this STG-77 now, with the increased range, and a grip that will reduce horizontal and vertical recoil, or actually the quick grip, so you can faster ADS, plus then the faster ADS here. Suddenly we have a gun with enormous range that always deals max damage that you can either single fire really quick tap away, or you could full auto. But if you want to full auto it, I would probably recommend going for a foregrip that does reduce the horizontal and vertical recoil, as it's easier to keep on with the 4x. And by the way, this STG-77, one of my favorite long-range guns. However, my real favorite range gun is the M1A. You can make it super quick ADS, as we talked about. You can put some recoil control on it, together then with the range extender here as well. And we're suddenly sitting at a gun that on any distance just does the maximum damage, and you can just tap it away. I mean, I could stand on the other side of the map, and I will hit you. Even if I don't see you right here, that target, I can still absolutely demolish you. M1A is truly king. Slap some AP bullets L on that, and it's going to be absolutely maddening. This, by the way, needs a BR ammunition magazine. For closer range, I do actually love to use the MP, as with the respective hipfire attachments I've shown you, it's an absolute laser beam. However, the MP only does 12 damage per shot, which can be an issue, and I usually don't like to get this close to opponents, right? I prefer to be a bit further away. So I like to use the AK because the AK is not as cumbersome as the RPK. That one weighs a lot and slows you down. Whereas the AK then, with the red dot scope, and in this case, I'm going to go for the rifle muzzle brake together with the ADS time and ADS spread plus ADS time. You get a gun that works at the intermediate 20-meter ranges and absolutely hits away. And is a goddamn menace and super easy to keep on. Ah, man. And you just move fast with it. This should not be underestimated because in case you have to run because you get in an unfortunate situation, movement is king. Any questions left, post them in the comments below. And if you have something to say, share it with us as well. Plus, you should check out this video because there's tricks you might not know of. Take care.